Night one NFL draft. Like I'm speechless. Like so many things happen. So many things to talk about. I don't even have any notes. I just got done doing a 4-hour live stream talking about this stuff. But you know what? We're going to do a video right now. My reaction to the first round. Cue the intro. All right, welcome back into the Dynasty Nerds YouTube page. I'm Garret Price, and we just got done with night one of the NFL draft. And for there not being many fantasy relevant players being drafted, there were some huge impacts for fantasy football. So we're going to go through those. I think the biggest one, the first one we got to talk about, A.J. Brown being dealt to the Philadelphia Eagles. I don't think anyone had that on their bingo card today of A.J. Brown being dealt to the Philadelphia Eagles. But look, from the Eagles' perspective, they wanted to get another receiver. They thought that anybody that they would have drafted wouldn't have been as good as A.J. Brown. They paid a hefty price, 4 years. Over that 4 years, they're going to be paying $100 million. Yes, $1 million for the services of A.J. Brown. Now, what this means, well, it's not great news for A.J. Brown. First of all, quarterback. Yes, I know Tannehill's not great, but Hurts, even though he's a good fantasy quarterback, he's not the most accurate passer. He runs a lot in situations where other quarterbacks would throw the football. So it's not great there. But then you also have the factor in Devontae Smith is there and Dallas Goedert is there. So there's only so much market share that he's going to be able to command. And so while he was commanding, 25, 26, 27, 28, whatever it was in Tennessee, that's got to drop by 3, 5, 8%. I don't know. It's got to drop. It's not going to be as high as it was before. More inaccurate passes. That's not good news for fantasy football. What it is good news for, and obviously it's not good news for Devontae Smith or Dallas Goedert, but it's great news for Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts now has no excuses. He has crazy good weapons for him to throw the football to. So it's going to be fascinating to see how this Philadelphia Eagles offense just blossoms. At least it should. We'll see if it does. But then you also have, conversely, the Tennessee Titans say, we're going to take a player that we believe is pretty similar in Treylon Burks. And I get the comp. I've seen a lot of people, my friend Kyle Yates on the podcast or on the live stream tonight made that comp of A.J. Brown and Treylon Burks being similar. My only issue is A.J. Brown was a much better route runner than Treylon Burks was coming right out, like right away. He was much more efficient. Treylon Burks has a lot of room to grow and develop there. Robert Woods is there in Tennessee, so that's going to be an aid, but it's going to be interesting to see. It's definitely one of the better landing spots we saw tonight because overall the landing spots for the receivers weren't that great. Treylon Burks ends up in a pretty good spot where he could command a pretty good target share over there in Tennessee. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Let's move over to the first wide receiver off the board, Drake London. A lot of people were talking about Garrett Wilson there, potentially Jameson Williams there. It ended up being Drake London as the first one off the board. Another situation where it's not great quarterback play, but here it's much more wide open. At this point, it's really only Kyle Pitts there. Eventually, Calvin Ridley could be back, which would take some targets away there, but this is a great landing spot for Drake overall. I think it's one of the better ones that we've seen because once we get to Garrett Wilson, he ended up in New York. Elijah Moore's already there. Zach Wilson, we don't know, even though I like Zach Wilson. They're doing a good job of building that team overall, but we'll see. This is going to have to be a high-octane offense for both of those wide receivers to really be top 24 guys. So I think it's neutral. I'm going to say neutral for Garrett Wilson, but if it's any direction, it's probably down a hair. Then we go over to Jameson Williams. Jameson Williams ends up going to Detroit, which I did not see coming. I didn't think they were going to trade up. He goes there at 12. We skipped 11. We'll get back to that. He goes there at 12. And at that point, it's going to be tough to see how successful he's going to be able to be with Jared Goff because there's also DJ Chark there, which isn't a huge threat, but they do similar things. They're both these deep threat, big play guys. And Jared Goff is much more comfortable with the underneath stuff. So yes, he can score a touchdown at any time, and so he's always going to hold value because of that. But it's not going to be quite as easy as it once was to imagine him being this dominant fantasy football wide receiver. Now let's go over to New Orleans. They picked at 11, and they took Chris Olave, which surprised some people. This is a situation where you're getting Jameis Winston as your quarterback, and we know we've seen him in the past. He can be great for fantasy football. So it's going to be really, really fascinating to see how that all plays out, because Michael Thomas could be coming back, but we don't even know who Michael Thomas is anymore. He's missed so much time due to injury and whatever else that is he even still a capable wide receiver one? So I think Chris Olave got a little bit of a situation bump, but ultimately all these guys, I'm not changing drastically in my rankings based on their situations. I'm going to stick with the evaluations that I had on tape. So I still have Garrett Wilson as my top guy. I might move a guy a spot or two. The only one that I could see moving down semi-significantly, when I say semi-significantly, I'm talking like 2 spots. So not crazy. But is Jahan Dotson. I love Jahan Dotson. I had him as my wide receiver 4 in this class. Big fan of Jahan Dotson. Here's the issue that we ran into, though. He ended up with the Commanders. He got great draft capital, 16th overall, but he ended up with the Commanders. Now, I love Carson Wentz more than most people, but I'm not blind to the fact that he's not an elite fantasy quarterback. On top of that, their wide receiver one is well established in Terry McLaurin. Now, we could see some sort of trade happen because similar to A.J. Brown, similar to some of these other guys, there's some contract possible disputes. DK Metcalf's in that same boat. Deebo Samuel's in that same boat right now. So there's definitely some possibilities there. But as it stands right now, I think this was probably the least desirable situation. And I think it is a little bit of stock down for Jahan Dotson. Still believe in the player, still believe in the talent, and he's going to probably fall in your drafts farther than he should. I would still be willing to scoop him up, but just with knowing that right now he's in line to be a wide receiver 2 on not a great passing attack. We didn't see any of the running backs go. None of the running backs went. None of the tight ends went. So there's not a ton to talk about there. But last but not least, let's talk about the quarterbacks, because like 2 weeks ago, we were talking about Malik Willis maybe going at 2 to Detroit. Well, I got news for you. He didn't go at 2. Didn't go at 10. Didn't go at 22. He didn't go in the first round. Malik Willis not drafted. Desmond Ridder not drafted. Sam Howell not drafted. Matt Corral not drafted. But there was one quarterback, Kenny Pickett. Kenny Pickett went from Pittsburgh University to the Pittsburgh Steelers. He stayed right in the same city, right in his same hometown. I bet he still sleeps in the same bed at his parents' house. And I'm sure that his mom will still tuck him in at night, which is really nice. But all of that being said, Kenny Pickett's the only one to go first round. And obviously, that's a bump, because at that point, he's the only one that we can say confidently there's an NFL team that views him as a starter. There was no other team to make that jump right now. So Malik Willis stock down, Desmond Ridder stock down, all of those guys stock down. But Kenny Pickett stock up with the Pittsburgh Steelers. The weapons in Pittsburgh, I think this was a good situation too, because I mentioned it before. For Najee Harris, the best situation for him is Ben Roethlisberger, because he's going to check it down. But we knew Mitch Trubisky coming in is not a check down guy. I do think Kenny Pickett will be a little bit more apt, a little bit more willing, even though he's mobile in his own right. He's not a statue by any stretch of the imagination. But I do think that he will be willing to check it down more than a Malik Willis would have or a Desmond Ridder would have. So I think this is good news for him and great news for guys like Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool. I think this is definitely stock up for those guys. All right, last but not least, got to talk about prize picks. Yes, pretty soon you'll be able to get in there and say, all right, how many yards do I think Garrett Wilson will get? Oh, what's the line at? 900. I don't know. I just made that up. 900. Over or under 900 yards for our guy, Garrett Wilson. That's what you get to do over at prizepicks.com. You get to bet the overs. You get to bet the unders. You get to add all of these things together, and you can do these 5-man things and these 4-man things and all kinds of fun stuff. Guess what? You don't even have to keep it within the same sport. That's right. If you use promo code Dynasty, you can get a deposit match up to $100. So that's $10 for you, Yeah, they'll give you $10. You put in $20, yeah, they'll put in $20, all the way up to $100. That's right, prizepicks.com. We appreciate you guys as a sponsor.